Hey guys, my name is S1REN with Offensive Security, and today we're going to be working on a machine called Photographer. This is available on PG Play, and we're just going to kind of get down to it. Let me just swap my source over here. Excellent. So what I've already done here is exported my environment variables, or we have our IP environment variable, we have a URL ready to go. Same thing down here, the IP and the URL. The one up here in our top terminal contains /fuzz. That's going to be for wfuzz if and when we need it. And this one is just going to contain a trailing / for perhaps nicto or something. But what we're going to do is launch nmap-p- for 65,535 port coverage, full port coverage, -sv for service version, -sc for simple scripts. We're going to do that on our target IP, tack on --open, and that's essentially just going to tell nmap that we're really only concerned with those open ports. We're going to hit the return key, and you can hit the return key while it scans to follow the progress, but I'm going to go ahead and pause here, and once that is done, we're going to load it into Cherry Tree, do some highlighting, and begin our preliminary enumeration. Okay, so we have our nmap output. We're just going to select everything up through here and right-click, copy, and then what we're going to do is we're going to load this into Cherry Tree. Now I'm going to go ahead and load it into Cherry Tree, and actually I'm going to do all the highlighting just for time's sake. I'm going to do all the highlighting, all the formatting, and then we're going to go ahead and review that together. Okay, so as you can see, I have everything loaded. I have our nmap output down here, and I've just done some highlighting. I've pasted that under our nmap results. So we have port 22, which is SSH. We got 80 HTTP, 139 and 445 as a pair, NetBIOS SSN. Port 8000 HTTP, running Koken 0.22.24. And our target OS is Ubuntu. And I've got that loaded up here at the top. Ubuntu, oops, there we go. And then I have our IP here. And what we're going to do is essentially start with 80. And we're going to do some nicto, wfuzz. We're going to be testing with wfuzz for parameters that need input sanitization checks, directories, files. Then we're going to do some manual inspection as well, aka view the source look. So what we're going to do is just Alt-Tab back to our terminal. I'm going to clear this out, and I'm going to grab a common command that I use for fuzzing files. I'm going to paste that there. Don't worry, we're going to go over it. wfuzz -c. We're going to say we want color. -c is the file input method, or data input method, which is going to be file. We're going to specify, for me, I have opt, seclist, discovery, web content, raf medium files.txt. And then we have --hc, or hush code 404. So we're not interested in any erroneous responses. We're going to do that also on our URL environment variable, which again, just notice that contains the fuzz keyword. So I'm going to clear this out, go back, and we're just going to let that fly. Then we're going to go ahead and go up here, or back down here actually to our terminal. We're going to say nicto --host on our URL here. Remember the same thing, same environment variable. The only difference is we don't have that fuzz keyword. I'm going to say C for checks, and we're going to specify all. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pause, but we're going to let that run, and we're going to see what we find. Okay, so I've decided to unpause. We're going to just kind of review this output as we go. Thus far, we've only really gotten back an index.html file. Index.html.old apparently is there. Let's go ahead and hop over to Firefox. Let me just grab the IP real quick. And let's do some manual inspection while we're busting up those directories, or excuse me, those files in this case. We'll do directories next. but on port 80, and it looks like we have some kind of very nice little looking website. Let me maximize that. Lorem ipsum. So this is very much default installation stuff for sure. This is very default. One thing I do notice is that we have a prep OSCP machine by V1N1, and yeah, that we have already listed that as a potential user that we could utilize. So I'm going to minimize that, and we're going to go back to our terminal. And honestly, we're not really finding too much there. What we're going to do is just copy over our wfuzz output for the /URI on port 80. And so here we are, the web root. And I'll put that as 80. Files, port 80. And then I'm going to copy this because we have 2 HTTP ports. And I'll put that one for 8000 as well. Directories 80. And we'll have one for directories on port 8000 as well. Cool. So we have that index.html. We noticed a index.html.old. But let's go ahead and take a look at that nicto output, see if anything's really come back. Not particularly. This could take quite a while. It's already sent along thousands and thousands of requests, so I'm going to Control-C out of this for now. Normally, though, I would like to let that go kind of to completion. Nonetheless, we're going to go ahead and go to our nicto output and specify that. I don't particularly see anything of use here. We're just going to keep moving right along. So we have port 80. We need to do some manual inspection. Let's take a look at the page source. And while we're doing that, let's go ahead back to our terminal. And we are going to re-export our URL. This time we're going to add a trailing / because we're going to be testing for directories. Same wfuzz command, except instead of raf medium files, I'm going to say raf medium directories. And we're going to let that go and just see what it gets back. So we have images. I do that because I want to know when I'm manually browsing in the web browser. I want to see that kind of as I go. And that's just kind of my thinking there. So we have images, background, bunch of pictures. Nothing of too much interest there. We have assets, CSS, some fonts, some JS. Again, not really too much of interest there as well. But we're going to let it continue. And let's actually check out, in the meantime, results from our file busting. It was index.html.old. And let's open that. Okay, that's fine. We can save it. Cancel. And I'm going to go ahead and cat that index. I believe it would be there. No, it's not there. Well, anyway, let's see if we can find it then. Where did it decide to go? Mozilla root. So we're going to cat /temp .mozilla root, or Mozilla root, and then we're going to cat the index.html.old file. And I'm actually going to pipe that to HTML to text. Oh, we don't have that on this machine. Well, I'm going to apt-get and install-yes HTML to text because I want to demonstrate what that does. And that takes a couple seconds. In fact, it is pretty much almost. All this while we're really waiting for our directory busting to come back. say which HTML to text. It's present. For some reason it did not exit there. It's okay. We're going to perform the same command. We're going to cat that and pipe it to HTML to text. And you notice that it goes ahead and renders all that HTML so that we just get the text back. And it looks like it's the default. So if you're familiar with Apache 2, you know, it works. Then this was the old index. In fact, there it is right up there for confirmation. Let me blow up the font size. It works. And yeah, if you're familiar with Apache 2, that'll be very, very familiar to you. So nothing really stood out there. And we're not getting too much back in terms of directories. So for the sake of time, I'm going to cancel this. We're going to copy it though. Again, that would be nice to see to completion. But what we're going to do for the sake of time in this video is we're going to put directories on the web root. We're going to say that we found images, assets, icons with a and server status are both Control Z that are both 403, so we can get rid of those. And all we really got back was images and assets. That's not too much. I'm not really particularly interested in that. So we're going to close out of this. We're going to hop back to our terminal. I'm going to exit this. And now we're going to hit up port 8000. So I'm going to re-export my URL. I'm just going to change the port. I'm going to remove the trailing forward slash. Go up, and we're going to do files again. And then we'll go into directories. And we're going to let that fly. Oh. So this is actually good to show. In this particular case, we have a lot of 302 erroneous output. How do we hush that? Let's say I'm okay with a 302, but I'm not okay with the response size. Actually, let's leave that out for now. What I'm trying to say is you can suppress the response size or the response code. I'm going to do a comma delimiter with 302, and we're going to see what shakes loose. So we have api.php, index.php, and we're just going to let this whole thing go. dl.php, a.php. We're getting quite a lot back here. In the meantime, let me jump back into the web browser, specify port 8000. Let's see what's on there, yeah? What is made available to us? So we have Deza Ahami, or Ahomi, I don't know how to pronounce that. But we have Deza as well. So we have timelines, albums, anything funny in the URL, content, essays. So a bunch of changing URIs here, which is quite fine. And we're going to go ahead and let this go. And I'm going to pause it, and we're just going to wait till this output is complete. So I've gone ahead and unpaused it. So basically, I've noticed something in our output up here. Remember how I was talking about that 302? I am going to go ahead and explain this. It's not that the 302 is particularly a bad response. In fact, we might even miss stuff. So to just be a little more complete, I'm going to allow the 302, but I'm going to hush any 0 byte response sizes, and let's see what that gets us. Do we get any different results? Index. So you see how we're not getting those 302s, all those erroneous 302s, because they had 0 characters in terms of bytes that was responded with. But if there is a 302 that has more than 0 characters or 0 bytes, we'd like to be able to see that. So we're going to, travel through this and just make sure that it all works. I'm going to go ahead and pause, and we're going to check our output once it's done. Okay, so our output is done. I'm going to go ahead and move that over into Cherry Tree. We're going to copy it. Go to cherry tree for port 8000. For files, here we are up here. We had index.php, htaccess, but no access to it. In fact, let's go ahead and get rid of all these 403s. Really tighten up that list. Obviously, the dot is going to work. That's the web root. We do have an API.php, which is pretty interesting. But we got to get down to business with hitting up those directories. I'm going to re-export the URL. You know the drill. Trailing /. We're going to add that. And I'm going to specify RAF medium directories. And I don't know if, I'm not going to hush out any 0, just as a rule of thumb, because that's going to be very erroneous, and 404s. We're going to hit enter key, and oh, so we have an admin tag category. Look at all, now we're getting results. This is what we were looking for. Lightbox, very nice, okay. So we're going to let that go. Let's go ahead and check out. In the meantime, let's let that go and let's pull back to our enumeration, right? Let's pull back to what we have. Let's go to our to try list up at the top. We've done this. We've nictoed, we've viewed it. There was nothing really of particular interest on 80. Nothing of particular interest. Perhaps further investigation. Perhaps further investigation. So we can come back to that. In fact, I'm just going to move that on priority. Let's say this is timed, right? So very much. Let's say this is timed. So we've done, we have not done nicto on this one yet, but we've been finding a lot of stuff with wfuzz. And we've been doing some manual inspection as well, browsing around the web application, clicking the links, viewing the inputs, and looking to see if there was anything left behind on accident, any comments in the code. And we got back quite a lot indeed, but we do have port 139 and 445. So we're going to utilize a tool in another thing here. In fact, because we're going to need the IP address, let's keep that copied to our clipboard. And we're going to use a tool known as enum for Linux. Export that IP and blow this up so that it's more readable. We're going to use enum for Linux -A for all on the target IP. And this is going to check to see if server message block permits something known as null sessions. If it does, we'll probably get back plenty of information. If it doesn't, then, well, SMB null shares are not permitted. However, it seems like it does permit null shares, or null sessions, excuse me. But what we want to look for is any shares. Are there any shares here? Aha! So we do. We have, aside from the standard print, IPC, you may be familiar with the admin one as well, we see Samba share. So I'm immediately just going to, instead of letting it cycle all these RIDs right now, I'm going to do this kind of manually and use SMB client, that's server message block client. And what we're going to do is put in our target IP. In fact, let me echo that out real quick as reference. Yeah, SMB client and / /192.168.235. This will be different for you. And then / Samba share is what it was. And we're going to say that we want to connect with the null session. To do that, we're just going to tack on a -n. Sure enough, we're connected. Great, let's see what we have in here. So we have mail sent and a backup WordPress zip file. This is looking good. I'm going to exit out of this since these are files. I'm going to go to my files directory. Notice there's nothing in here. We're going to reconnect and let's list that out and let's get that file and got it. And let's get that WordPress file as well. Maybe we can unzip it and see what's going on there. So we have both of those. Let's take a look now. In our files directory, we have cat mail sent. Okay, we have a mail. So hi, Deza. Your site is now ready. It looks like our directory busting up there. Don't forget your secret, baby girl. Okay, so we definitely have a secret. That could be a username, that could be a password. I'm just going to put other. We don't really know what this is just yet, but potential password. And I'm also going to put this information, because we got this back from 139 and 445, in our enumeration, I'm going to say we got back, well, baby girl. We don't know what that is. Let's take a closer look. This is pretty good. Here's the full name that we saw on the website, Daisy Ahami, and Daza at photographer.com. This is what we're looking for. So this is a username. In fact, that's one that I can say exists, just because, quite frankly, it's using the FQDN, and mail was sent from the system utilizing that username or email combination. So we're going to save that right there. And what we're going to do is take a look at, we can come back to the WordPress if we need to. We would really just unzip that and take a look at the config data, configure information, and, live and let fly. And just some keyboard interrupts there, but we're going to go here, and some scrolling issues, but there we go. Right click, copy, straight into Cherry Tree. And for the directories, we have our files in the web root, port 8000, our directories that we found. Now, directories for 8000, we have this here. And there are plenty of code 200s. I'm not going to spend the time. I'll spare you highlighting all of them. But we are going to manually look through these and see kind of which just stand out the most. From my perspective, which things stand out the most. Obviously, admin is standing out the most right now. In fact, I'm going to put that under 8000 at the very top of our to try list, that we found a /admin panel or something. We haven't even looked at it yet, but we're gonna. Admin sounds promising. These just seem like a few standard endpoints. Lightbox sounds interesting. Let's see. I would really realistically check all of these out. Set and sets, and perhaps any left behind data like essays or documents, anything to do with an album. A lot of times albums can be misprogrammed and unsanitized, and we can perhaps find file inclusions, directory traversals, all kinds of fun things. So just a note there. But above all, definitely admin. I think we can agree here that admin is definitely the way to go. So what we're going to do is drop on over and take a look. What does that look like? /admin, port 8000 /admin with the trailing /. And we are getting something. Okay, so here's that CoCen that we discovered in our nmap output. I highlighted that. CoCen 0.22.24. So let's go ahead, and it looks for the email address. Great. We just found this. So let's try that. Now, as far as passwords go, we don't really have any passwords. We have a guess from the secret. It was even specified as a secret from server message block on that Samba share in the text file that we retrieved and exfiltrated. So we're going to try baby girl as the password. And it looks like that's loading. Okay, great. So we're actually in. This is a great stepping point, and I'm just going to copy this, that this did work, working password. We're not going to skip over this. This is a valid username password combination. DAISA at photographer.com with password baby girl. This is our most complete credential set that we've gathered thus far. I know what that is, so I'm going to remove that. And I'm going to paste this link just for reference if I ever want to come back to it. But we had CoCen 0.22.24. And what we're going to do is just kind of take a look and peek around this application, quite frankly. So we're looking around. We have text, site. Let's pretend in our mind that this is kind of like a CMS or a content management system. Whenever we drop into a CMS, the first things that we're always going to look for is, does this platform support upload functionality? Can I upload files to this target server? Is there any module functionality, modules, extensions, add-ons, things of that nature? So included on upload functionality. So let's keep looking, perhaps settings. Any system information that's useful? So we have a bunch of system information actually here, which is pretty cool. Okay. Importing. Site publishing. Let's go back to library. What if I hit import? Okay, we can upload directly from here. That's pretty useful. So it says that it accepts a JPEG, PNG, GIF, or MP4. I have a feeling, just from my experience, we're probably going to need burp. So I'm not even going to play around. I'm going to get burp loaded, set the proxy settings, go up here, just type in burp. And we're going to get this rocking and rolling because I have a feeling we're going to have to be doing some intercepting of some kind. But one thing we want to do before we do any of that is search the exploit database. So we're going to go over to our terminal. I'm going to exit this one. There we are. Thank you, burp. Accept. And we'll load that up. And then we're going to check out the exploit database. Exit. Clear this all out, and we're going to type search exploit CoCen. Sure enough, for the exact service version, we have CoCen CMS 0.22.24 for arbitrary file upload, and that is an authenticated one. Fortunately, we are authenticated. So I'm going to copy that, and we're going to go back. Actually, no, we're going to go forward. And we're going to go into our vulnerabilities directory. I'm going to locate this file on the machine. Where is that? Nice. I'm going to copy it. We found it. We're going to copy that to the present working directory. And there it is. We're going to cat the file. And cool. So it gives us the post request that we need. And it looks like, if my experience tells me anything, that quite frankly, we can just create a reverse shell PHP file, it's looking like, save it as .jpeg, because that is what it said it permitted. I'm going to expand this. And I'm actually going to go over here for now. So we're going to go to display. This is something I should have done before, and I do apologize. But if you want to know, we can increase the font size for readability. I'm going to make that theme dark. And I'm going to change the font size as well here inside of burp to 18, and that should be consistent in future videos. Our proxy is enabled, so we're ready to intercept. What we need to do, though, is go ahead and utilize a PHP reverse shell. What I'm going to do, see if I have that here. I do. We're going to go to our PHP directory. I have a little file directory called transfers, and I sort it by technology or language. These are just some old ones left behind. But I am going to atom php reverse shell.php, and let's see. I have to specify no sandbox on that one. But there we go. And we're going to have to change up our if config. 0. We're going to need our IP address for the VPN. And let's blow up the font size again so you can read. So this is from Pentest Monkey, who also works here at Offensive Security. And you can find this shell available on his website at Pentest Monkey. So definitely give that a look. I'm going to just change the IP, and I'm going to keep the port as 9090. And I'm going to save that out. And then I'm going to clear this, list everything. I'm going to copy PHP reverse shell.php and rename that to, offsec.php as the exploit suggested, right? To .jpeg. And what we're going to do is then go back to the web application. I can close out of our text editor here. And we're going to go back to the web application. We're going to browse our machine. And I'm going to go to transfers. And we're going to go to that PHP. And it was, what was it? OffSec, yeah? .php.jpg. We're going to open it. One item queued. And I believe this should capture in Burp Suite. It sure enough did. Excellent. We're going to right-click that, send that to the repeater. But one thing that we're going to end up doing is changing up, well, let's take a closer look at that exploit. So renaming up here the name equals name to image.php is what they had. What we're going to do is just change that to offsec.php. Make sure this is consistent with the exploit as the version number is correct. Public, all, none, and then it looks like we're good down here. We're going to need to change the file name though and redact that .jpg and have just offsec.php. And I'm going to let that forward along and forward out everything else. In fact, to forward out everything else, little trick, I just turn off intercept and that will forward out everything else. Pretty cool. So well, now we have the task of either identifying where our uploaded file was transferred to, but it looks like after we forwarded the request, it provided it to us and we can download the file. I'm going to set up a netcat listener to listen verbosely in LVP on 8080. That's listen numerically, and then the L for listen verbose on port 8080. And, oh, that's already in use, excuse me, 9090. See, we make mistakes. There we go, 9090. And then we're going to right-click, copy image location, because I don't want to burn this page just as reference. Copy link location, new tab, and we're going to load it. And if I'm correct, yeah, so it did. Awesome. We now have a shell. That is really good. We don't have a TTY. Is Python here? Awesome. So I'm going to use my breakout command. And we're going to do python-c, import a valid TTY. If I type TTY now, we now have a valid TTY, and we're going to have absolutely no problem. We're going to have zero problem executing anything. I'm going to export paths. I'm going to export the term to 256 color. I'm going to alias out LL. I'm going to scare everybody in the audience half to death by hitting Control-Z to background that. We're going to type STTY, or copy and paste, raw-echo into the foreground command and into the reset command. And now if I hit Control-C, it won't send the termination signal, and we have effectively a stable shell with color. So that's really good. And we're also going to set those columns and rows to be very large, so we don't have to worry about overflows or anything like that. But now that's it. We have a stable shell on the target machine, and we're ready to begin our post-exploitation enumeration. So I'm going to actually kind of just go down the list of my own personal Profess guide, and we're going to get down to business. I'm going to open up a new note. We can have that here. I'm going to put a subnote here, and we're going to call this post enumeration. And if we find anything interesting, what I'm going to do for this is I'm just storing this kind of on the back burner. I'm going to run file bin bash. This is what I'm going to try to enumerate right now out of the gate, because it's the last thing, is for kernel payloads. I'm not even going to specify. This is for kernel payloads. This is for absolute last resort. total backburner. But what am I seeing here? I'm seeing ELF 64-bit LSB executable. If we were to ever compile anything, we would need to make sure that with our GCC compilation or CC compilation options that we specified the correct options such that it would execute natively. We're going to do a uname-a. I'm just going to copy this, no hesitation. We're going to move right along. This is Linux Photographer 4.15, 0 through 115 generic Ubuntu. And we're going to cat / etc -release. Again, this is more of this. I'm going to copy up through here. Copy. And we're just going to leave this as total backburner stuff. And then we're going to move right along. So excuse me. But what we're going to do is do a sudo-l. Now, this is not going to work because we don't have the password for www data or www data. And also, www data is rarely, if ever, going to be a member of the sudo group. I guess my point behind that is that I will take some people down roads. I'll take you guys down a road if I do believe that it's going to help you. Genuinely, I do. So that's not going to be there. But what we're going to do is just continuing down our enumeration. We're going to check the environment variable for anything exotic. Nothing too much particularly standing out. We're going to check back in the web root, right? We had our var www, HTML. And this Linux posting, yeah, it comes from memory, but I promise you, the more and more practice you have, I mean, if you get a few hundred machines under your belt one day, then this kind of stuff, it'll be very, very quick, and it'll surface to your mind much quicker. But let's go to Coken. Anything in here? Admin. So we could search all day through here for config files, and that would normally be, config files would be a big thing to search for. Let's check the system for any world writable directories. Let's go to var temp. Doesn't seem like there's anything here this time. Let's go to temp. Nothing there either. Let's check dev shim. And nothing other than pulse. So really everything there is kind of fine. Let's cat etc fstab. And let's see if there's any exotic mounts here with extended user attributes. Not to be confused with ext4. This is the standard in the world, is usually ext4, the mount. But we would be looking for, like, it would say user extended attributes. We don't see anything like that. Is there anything we can mount that has it? Doesn't look like it. So at least we checked. Let's go to the etc directory. Is there anything in here not created by root, or perhaps created by a user on the machine? So anything other than root, or root shadow. We do have root dip for chat scripts, but that is outside of what we're doing here. It's not going to be particular anything. Is there bad permissions on the password file? No, that's read only. Are there any, I'm going to ls everything out in the directory and grep, any .secret files that might contain useful information? No. No .secret files either. So let's list out /etc cron, or cron star. There we are. Does anything stand out as exotic here? Do we have any cron jobs? It looks like we have cron.daily, cron.hourly, and a cron placeholders. Cough, cough. That's all I'm going to say about that. But nonetheless, because there may or may not be a vulnerable machine that works with that, so definitely always check extensively. We could type cron tab -l. That's not going to be anything for www data, just a little bit of Linux there. But if we cron tab -u root -l, must be privileged to use that. So there's nothing particularly going on there. That's not the way that I, S1REN, like to confirm. whether or not there's I/O operations going on this machine. That's not the way I prefer it. I'd say that we do ps aux, grep everything that's running as root, -I, root, apply color anywhere we find it. And I would look for cron and see if it's being utilized. I don't see it being utilized here. I don't see many cron jobs running. Another helper will always be a tool known as pspy 32 or pspy 64 respectively. Definitely worth looking into. We're going to come down to where these square brackets end, and we're going to start looking thoroughly. VM tools, cron. I am going to put potentially cron, right? We've had that in the past. It's not going to be VM tools. We have ACPID, light DM. Honestly, this is very lightweight. MySQL daemon safe, NMBD, but it doesn't look like we have anything. I mean, we got cups, and then we have a bunch of Samba daemons. So that's going to be IPC. If I remember from memory, that's IPC. One is going to be print, and then one is going to be our Samba share that we were able to exfiltrate a valid password and user from. So at least we've checked that. Let's check the network. netstat-ton-lp. Okay. So what are we looking for here? What are we looking for here? What are we looking for here? 127.0.0.1. So, excuse me. That is anything to say that is running off of the loopback adapter. Think very physical, very much the machine's loopback adapter is very much low on that OSI model. And what we're going to do is see, okay, that's 3306, right? We also have 631 of 53. So DNS, cups, MySQL, anything else? Nothing of particular interest. We do have MySQL, in which case we could check for reused credentials, but one thing we haven't even done yet is check the home directory. We have two valid users, AGI and DESA. So let's go to DESA. There is a local flag, user.txt. You would want to explore this. You know, one trick that if there's more than one user is I would just go to the directory and ls-lsa capital R for /home. And basically looking, I can even pipe any erroneous permission denied to dev null, and that'll look cleaner. And we have home daisy desktop, so expanding out all those subdirectories in one command. We have our share, so that seems to be what AGI was doing, is holding that share directory where we found mail sent in the WordPress zip. But other than that, there's nothing too exotic really standing out to me here. The bash history is being piped directly to dev null, so we're not going to be able to see any left behind history. Again, we know that share information. There is Mozilla here. I find that interesting. Let's go to AGI. Of course, we can't always check everything, so we don't have permission to that. If we did have permission to traverse into this directory, or we were the user AGI, we could potentially pull passwords utilizing a pretty well-known utility, but we'll talk about that maybe on another machine, because this is a different topic. But if you see that Mozilla directory, you really do want to try and exfiltrate those passwords and all those credentials, because you can get those in plain text. So that's taking a look at home. We've taken a look at the network. I mean, what else? Let's check the mail. Doesn't seem that there's any mail floating around. There is something we haven't checked, and that is for SUIDs and GUIDs. So I'm going to scroll up to the top of my own Linux post document here, SUIDs. I'm going to let that run, and then we're going to search for GUID. Copy. Why does that not want to run? clear this out and try that. I'm going to pause just in case, but that should, nope, it came back. Perfect. I don't know why it stalled so long the first time, but we're going to copy over this information just as soon as we run the same thing for groups. So that is -perm for groups equal to suid. So any binaries, they're going to have group or GUID, set GUID permissions. We're going to copy this over. I'm going to say suids and GUIDs. We've done so much manual, but let's say suids, GUIDs, and we're going to paste this in. And we have one that stands out to me immediately, which is PHP 7.2. So we have a programming language, literally the binary for the language PHP 7.2 is running with set user ID permissions. Now, if we remember correctly from one of our previous lessons, we can basically utilize one. In fact, I would, and rather than explain that over here, I would like to show you something. Let's go to GTFO bins and just show what I'm talking about here. Type in PHP. So in the event that PHP is a suid, let's see what we have in terms of escalation. Let's blow up the font size so this is more legible. So suid permissions on PHP. It seems like we just set cmd equal to bin shell, which is just a symbolic link to really bin dash, the dash binary. And then we're going to basically utilize PHP. We're saying -r. That is to say, run the code executed, or execute the code within these quotation marks off the command line. And what we're going to be looking to do is execute bin shell, and we're specifying that -p option. So with the effective privilege of the user or group who created it, which since this is a suid, this, if we look at ls-lsa /bin PHP 7.2, or where was it in our, was it user bin? It was. So ls-lsa user bin PHP 7.2. So that's owned by root, group, root user, and we have that suid sticky bit. So we're going to utilize this privesc. And instead of ./PHP, we're going to have to make a slight modification. I'm going to paste this in here. Go to the beginning. Instead of ./PHP, we're going to have ./PHP 7.2. And if I'm correct, when we hit the return key here, we should have root, but there's no such file or directory. Oh, that might be because we specified out of the present working directory. Let's cd user bin, and let's try that one more time. We have root. We have root on the machine, and it is completely compromised. Wonderful. So let's go to the root directory, and what you would do from this point is cat the proof.txt file, type ifconfig to provide some networking information, the host name itself, and let's go ahead and type ID to show our effective privilege on the machine. You'll see EUID is equal to root. So this is where you would take a screenshot as evidence for your formal report and snap that. Save it. Save it. And there you go. Excellent. So one last thing before we wrap up here is I do want to bring a note to the fact that we have had our event. This is the Offensive Security has had the AMA webinar on macOS control bypasses, or the EXP 312 course. If you would like to watch that on demand, you can always click that and go have a listen, because this is not one you want to miss. This is a good one. Definitely not one you want to miss. So I'm going to go ahead and say, what are some takeaway concepts that we can have from this machine? It wouldn't be much if I didn't give a takeaway. Let's include a few. From the outside perspective, always being thorough with our testing of HTTP serving ports with proper directory busting, file busting, viewing the source manually. These things, this one line, I promise you, will lead you to so much success. Always check the exploit database for potentially weak security track records. Always check that for various services. And let's say another takeaway from this machine is going to be checking for those SUIDs and GUIDs. So, but before that, let's go before post-exploitation. In the event that we have file upload functionality or capability, we're going to want to test a rename in transit type of attack. Because all we did, that may have been an exploit for Kroken. This was an exploit for Kroken. But I do promise you, in my experience with web application assessments, that the exploit for Kroken is a big takeaway in and of itself. This is not just any other exploit. This is a technique. I want to emphasize that. The exploit showed us a very real technique for getting a malicious file or shell file uploaded, or shell uploaded. This is a very real type of attack that came from that exploit. And if you don't understand it, I would advise looking at it in more detail, because it does walk you through step by step. It does walk you through step by step. So that's going to basically conclude it. Again, guys, definitely this is not one to miss. You want to check out the EXP 312 course. One final takeaway, check your SUIDs and GUIDs. Okay. So, in conclusion, we learned quite a bit from that machine. It was very accessible. We were thorough with our enumeration from the outside, gaining entry through those credentials that were stored in an SMB share, a Samba share, that had null permissions on it. That is NULL, null permissions. And that very much led us to our success. So guys, again, my name is S1REN with Offensive Security. Always check out offensivesecurity.com/events for the latest news and updates and the fun stuff that we're doing. Feel free to drop into our Discord. You're going to find a lot of talk and feedback in those sections, especially if you're a student. That's the place to be. So you guys have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Or if you're watching this later, then you have a wonderful week. And take care.